Hello friends, welcome to or welcome back to the Eerie Fairy Tales. My name is Letty, and today I have my June wrap-up. Now I already filmed this, but then Power Director would only download like 20% of it, so now I have to refilm it. So great. I still have to do my July and August wrap-up as well. So in June, I read 7 books and a short story, and I participated in 2 readathons in June. And I participated in one all month long, and that was Once Upon a Readathon Treasure Island edition, and that was hosted by Hannah Blackwell, and I'll link her channel. So I think she does it annually, so that way if you want to participate in it next year, you can check that out. And then the end of June through the beginning of July, I participated in Mermaid Marathon, and that was hosted by the Brightside Girl. So I will link her channel as well down below so you can follow her if you'd like to and participate in that next year as well. So that really helped me. I participated in readathons pretty much all summer long, and I think that really helped me with my reading. I read a lot of books, but also a lot of really good books. And in this month in June, one of the readathons, well, one of course was a Mermaid Marathon, so it was mermaid themed, but the first one we got points and it was team based, and our team, I was on Team Merfolk, and so we got points just for reading a book. We got bonus points for reading it if it had a water setting. We got bonus points if it had our mascot involved in it somehow, and if we read a book with our opponent's mascot, we got to take points away from them. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know how we did. I never got to find out, but it was fun anyway. So so let's get into those books. And I forgot to mention in my May wrap-up, because I have the number of books that I've read, but also I think the page count matters, because you could read a 1,000-page book, or you could read a few books that were 300 pages, and it seems like you read more if you say you read 3 books. But I don't want to like hold myself back from reading something longer because, oh, it's only one book that I read, whereas I could read a lot more. Instead, I just want to read what I want to read when I want to read it, regardless of the page count. So this month in June, I read 2,430 pages. So for my wrap-ups now, this is what I did in my May wrap-up, is I'm going to be doing a ranking, basically my least favorite to most favorite, so ranting to raving. I may not necessarily have a rant, but I will start out basically doing least favorite to most favorite. And the first one I'll start out with, this one I'm not really rating because it was just a short story, and this was in a book that I got at the library for a couple bucks. We have a couple libraries that have a bookstore. It's basically like a walk-in closet, or they have like an aisle that's dedicated for books that you can buy. So I get a lot of my books from there anyway, so that's where that's from. So I read in this book, The Little Sea-Maid by Hans Christian Andersen, and The Little Sea-Maid, that's basically the OG Little Mermaid story, and I think it was 27 pages, yeah. It doesn't really have a happy ending. It's not anything like the Disney movie. I know, that's shocking, right? But yeah, that was an interesting little read, and that was fun too because I got points for reading. And then the next book that I am not rating necessarily because it's nonfiction, although this has been one of my favorite books that I've read. I love anything nautical, so when I heard about this book, I was like, I need to read this right now, and it had so many good reviews, and I am glad that I also have a very good review of it, and that is The Wager by David Grann. And just look at that cover as well. It's stunning. That is that's a real painting. It says in the back cover, and I do like the cover itself. The dust jacket, it kind of has a textured feeling. It's almost like it's canvas, and it looks like canvas, so it basically mimics the look of the actual painting, which I think is really cool. And this is also a nice hardcover edition. You have the maps in the front, and this goes over the ship in the mid 1700s, called the Wager. So basically, it was a British ship that was going after the Spanish treasure-filled galleon known as the Prize of All Oceans. And, things go awry and they end up getting shipwrecked. Of course, there's much more to it than that. They're gone for like a few years or something like that. It's a long time that they go through this. Photos in here as well. So you have the maps, the photos. So on here it says it's a tale of shipwreck, mutiny, and murder, and that is absolutely correct. This is a wild ride. This read more like a thriller, although it does include quotes from the people who were involved and from their logbooks. That's how they know that a lot of these things happened, because a lot of them kept logbooks, and also the court proceedings. So it's actual from their own words. It's not written dryly like that, where it's like, okay, this is what this person said. It's just woven in there so well. It is done so well. And it's a short one. It's actually only like 250 pages or something like that. I read this pretty quickly, and again, really recommend this if you're interested in any nautical type books, if you are interested in history, or if you love these kind of clipper ships. Okay, and this next one. So this is where we're gonna get a little ranty. Not too bad, because I didn't DNF it. I did finish this book. Of course, that was because it counted for 2 readathons. The 2 days that I read it, it overlapped 2 different readathons. So that's why I was like, well, I don't really want to give it up because it counts for 2 readathons. And it was a cute enough story. So I just pushed through it. And that was The Siren's Call by Alonna Williams. And that is just a beautiful cover. I love the color. It may not show up on the screen as well, but it is really beautiful in person. It looks kind of airbrushed artwork. You can tell it looks kind of young. It's probably YA. I would say even bordering middle grade, honestly. I mean, I don't know. I don't read middle grade. We have a young boy who loves stories about pirates, and he seems drawn to that life, and his parents want to keep him away from that, and he seems to be lured possibly by a siren. And in this book, you start out where he's born, and then he's a toddler, I think, and then 5 years old, 8 years old, and then 16 years old, and then that's where the story really picks up, is when he's 16. This main character, the kid. But when he's 16, I kept having to remind myself that he was 16, because it didn't seem like he really aged at all. It was like he acted the same from age 5, 8, and 16. Especially 8 to 16. I was like, wait. Oh, wait, that's right. Yeah, he is 16. So I was like, wait, why is he doing that? Oh, he's 16. That's right. What? And also the overuse of the exclamation points. It was like every single quote, everything they said had an exclamation point at the end of it. I was like, okay, this is so distracting. Like, not everything is going to be that exciting. So overall, I gave this a 2-star, and I don't think I would really recommend it. I mean, I don't say it was a bad book, although it did end in a cliffhanger, so you would have to continue on with the series, although I will not be doing that. Oh, and this next one for my rant. This one is so disappointing, because this was a 5-star anticipated read for me. I was so excited to read this, and it has so many good reviews, and I've read from this author before. I've read Middle Game, so you may know the book I'm talking about now, and that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grann. I did tab quite a few things. However, most of those things are things I didn't like, so I don't usually do that, but I did in this book. So in this book, we have killer mermaids, and some things have gone down prior with this other ship, and they're going to go investigate it. There's actually a main character in here. Something happened to her sister. She died back then, so she's going to go find out if she can see what really happened. This is a fantasy sci-fi horror. I would say it definitely leans a little bit more heavier on the sci-fi in the beginning, because it does take quite a bit of time to even get into the water, like over 100 pages, I think. Yeah, over 100 pages about. and it's 438 pages. So about a quarter of the book, you're not even in the water yet. You're going to the Mariana Trench to do some investigation. And I do enjoy that setting, ocean horror. That's one of my favorite subgenres. And I do love the sci-fi aspect. However, the horror I don't think was quite there enough. I kept thinking that maybe there'd be a little bit more that happened. But then when a little bit was happening, one of the main characters would have to like go sneak off and have a quickie with one of the other characters who she didn't like at first. And it was just very weird and it seemed forced. And it's very awkward. Like, why would you do that? Like, mermaids are literally slaughtering everyone and you gotta go run off and do a quickie. I don't understand. But also, the other scientists were pretty dumb anyway. Like, the things they did, I was like, wait, why are they doing that? Why would a scientist do that? Wait, why are you doing that? Like, was that just used to drive the story forward? I don't know. I found it a little distracting, that part. Oh, yeah, and then there's another part. The main character is supposedly a marine biologist, but she doesn't know something that the reporter knows. Like, something happens, and she's like, oh, what's happening? And the reporter's like, oh, yeah, it's this and this, blah, blah, blah. And the main character is like, oh, okay. It's like, what? I mean, I'm not saying a reporter can't know things. I pretty much I understood what she was saying. Like, why wouldn't the marine biologist know? It's just kind of weird. And there wasn't very much of the book where I was really feeling that terrified, claustrophobic feeling. There was really only one part towards the end where I was like, okay, this is actually really creepy. They have some kind of resolution. And it's like, really? That's how it ends? Like, I even went back and read more because I'm like, wait, did I miss something? Is that it? Maybe there's like a deeper meaning to it that I'm missing, and maybe if I knew that, like maybe if it was like an analogy for something else, I would understand it more. I don't know, but very disappointing. Very sad to say that because it was highly anticipated. I know I'm in the minority on this. A lot of people love this book. So if you're interested in this book before, like, don't let me sway you. Unless the things that I say that I don't like, you also don't like. But as I said, most of the things I tabbed in here are things I didn't like. However, I did tab one thing, and this is a quote here that I liked. And this is, the best predators always learned how to masquerade as things that wouldn't seem threatening. That was how they got close enough to strike. And I do agree with that. But overall, I gave this 3 stars. Okay, so getting into the books that I liked or loved. This next one I also read for a readathon. And this one I read because it came up in a recommendations video and it was mentioned that it was a retelling, kind of like a mashup of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Frankenstein. And at the time that I heard that recommendation, I was reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I hadn't read Frankenstein yet. I was like, oh wow, I really want to check that out. And it sounded like a fun story. I would also say that it had a little inspiration from Don Quixote. Again, I haven't read it yet, but from what I know about the story, it really seems like that was also an influence. And that book is Deeplight by Frances Hardinge. And it's such a cool cover. I love anything nautical, of course. I love octopi. How many pages? 419 pages. This is fantasy. You have a seaside town that used to have ruling gods, but then something happened to them and they all got broken up into different pieces and basically scattered all over the ocean floor. And that's what this is right here. That's actually a heart from one of those gods. People basically go fishing for these items and they hold special power, and so the people use them in their machinery. It really like brings the machinery to life, basically. It really helps them do things and it's very valuable. And then one day the main character finds this and they're afraid that the wrong hands are going to get a hold of it and use it for nefarious purposes. There is a lot of underwater action in this. There's really fun. Actually, there were some parts that legit creeped me out. Even though this was more of a fun story, it still kind of creeped me out a little bit more even than Into the Drowning Deep, which I think is kind of funny. In this book, you do have the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea vibes with the underwater adventure. You have the Frankenstein vibes because they're using these parts of the god in their machinery and basically creating like a hybrid life form with it in a way. And I would say also Don Quixote vibes, because the main character loves stories. He loves talking about stories, hearing stories, telling his own stories, true or false. He doesn't care. He just loves stories. And it's mentioned so frequently throughout the book that I just feel like Don Quixote has to have some kind of influence a little bit. I would love to ask the author that. And this was a very fast read, a fast, easy read. I actually annotated quite a bit in it. I didn't flag it, but I did underline quite a bit. And then I like to how every chapter beginning has the little tentacles on it. That's really cute. I really enjoyed this book and I gave it a 4.5 star, and I would recommend it. Okay, these next 3 books I gave all 5 stars. And this next one also, of course, read for a readathon. And I cannot say enough good things about this book. I have to say that Jules Verne is a genius. When this book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, was written, I think it was 1869 or something like that. Yeah, 1869. Submarines hadn't even been invented yet. Yet the way he described the machinery, the mechanisms of everything is absolutely phenomenal. The descriptions of the undersea flora and fauna was just so amazing. I could picture it. I was like, oh god, I really hope this is a movie, which by the way, I did find the movie very disappointed by it, the old school one. I won't get off into a tangent about that right now. But anyway, recommend the book, not the movie. And in this book, there is quite a bit of science, which I love. I love science. I loved all the detail. I learned quite a bit of things. I felt like I should have been taking notes while I was reading it, and maybe I will if I read it again. I think I may actually do that. But one of the fun things that I learned is that in the sea, there's basically a seaweed that has more nicotine than tobacco. So I thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, I love that aspect. I love the science. I love the adventure. I love the mysterious Captain Nemo, because there was a little bit of like intrigue with that. Like you're not quite sure what his motivations are. What's he gonna do? What's the plan here? How long are we doing this? What's the end game here? And this book is a bit of a shorter, 320 pages. But it did take me longer to read this than normal because it is an older style writing. Also, the main character is a doctor. I think he used to be a medical doctor, and now he's a professor. I think it's natural history or something. That's why he's so intrigued by all the aquatic life. Yeah, so basically in this book, you follow the characters for 20,000 leagues under the sea around the world. And 20,000 leagues, by the way, if you didn't know, a league is 3 miles. I looked that up because I wanted to know. I had to find out. And a league, I guess, I don't know why they called it that exactly, but I guess it's from when they had ships off the shore, off the coastline, and if they had cannons and they would shoot either way, I think, either to the ships or from the ships. 3 miles was basically the distance that the cannonball could go. So they would stay 3 miles out, which is a league. So a league is 3 miles. So there you go. So are you taking notes? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, this is an excellent book. 5 star. I would definitely recommend it. And I can see why this is a classic. And I'm very interested in reading his other couple books. I think he's written more than that, but I want to read Journey to the Center of the Earth and Around the World in 80 Days. Like to check those out, definitely. And if I can get them in this edition, then I definitely prefer it. So I'll be looking around for them. Okay, this next book, also 5 star, of course, all-time favorite. And that is Ascension by Nicholas Binge. Yeah, I tapped quite a bit in here, 342 pages. It's a sci-fi, mystery, adventure, horror. Basically, we have a giant mountain peak just appear out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And so people send expeditions out there trying to figure out what's going on. Weird things happen here. Time gets messed with a little bit. People start not quite acting themselves. You don't know who you can trust, if you can trust yourself. it becomes a very isolated setting, and it also involves one of my other favorite tropes, which I won't say because I feel like it would spoil it, but that was a very fun thing to find out. If you've read it, then you may know what I'm talking about. It's like more in the middle of the book. But this is really interesting because you basically have these people who are in this very dangerous situation. Things are like literally life and death, and they are determined to make it to the top, basically at any cost. It's like something just overcomes them, and they're just drawn to go all the way. And it's like, well, you can only go up so far, you know? So basically, like, what happens when they ascend all the way? And in this book, they reference the Greek myth of Sisyphus, and I love that. This was the first book this summer that I read that involved the Greek myth of Sisyphus. I actually ended up reading a couple more, and now I have some ideas for some other books I want to read, and also a video idea. I really enjoy that Greek myth because if you're not familiar, the Greek myth of Sisyphus, basically, Sisyphus had cheated death a couple times. I think I'm just going roughly off the top of my head. Sisyphus had cheated death a couple times. The ruler of Hades was really angry about that and basically punished him to push a boulder up a really steep mountain, only to have it come back down when he almost got to the top, and then he has to keep doing it over and over. So it references that. And that's all I'll say about that. I don't want to say like the meaning of that because I think it might spoil something in the book, but I really did enjoy reading that aspect of it. Also, I love physics, and this really plays around with physics, specifically spatial and temporal dimensions. So if you like quantum physics, I think you'll like this book. If you like multi-dimensional creatures, you might like this book as well. There's a lot of mystery involved because you're not sure what's going on, because you're just as lost basically as the characters are, which is fun. I love doing that actually. This book just like got in my brain like a worm. I would think about it all the time when I wasn't reading it. I still think about it from time to time as well. I'd love to reread it. Now knowing the ending, it's like one of those books where it's fun to read it the first time because you don't know what's going on, and then it's like better or like just as good but in a different way the second time because you do know what was going on, and now you can try to see all the little things that happened along the way, you know, and try to parse out maybe some more meaning. So I think I'd like to do a reread of this book. And I thought about doing also a standalone review about it with some spoiler sections as well, because I feel like to really dive into the Sisyphus myth and some other things that go on in the book, I think you do have to give spoilers. But I've only seen a few people here and there read it so far, so I don't know. We'll see. If I see more people reading it, then maybe I'll end up doing that. I did give this 5 stars. And I'd recommend it if you love sci-fi, if you love a little mystery, adventure, and it does get a little, maybe a little light gory, very light horror, I would say. Now, I'm a horror reader, so, but in my opinion, I would say light horror. So yeah, 5-star all-time favorite. This was excellent. Speaking of horror, I finally got this shirt, introverted but willing to discuss horror books. And I'm willing to discuss any book, but especially that, you know. And speaking of horror books, is my next 5-star book, my last book I'm going to talk about. And this is a 5-star all-time favorite. I only heard maybe one person mention this book before a while back, and then I happened to see it on my Amazon recommendations, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to check that out. What's a cool cover here? Let me get that. And then ended up reading it. And then since then, and I loved it. And then since then, a couple other people have read it and I've also loved it. I'm just like, oh, this is so awesome because it seems like he's not really that well known of an author. And so I think it would just be really cool if we could get more people onto his work. And that book had like a hole by Andrew Van Wey. That's such a cool cover. I love the fungi and the octopi. And had like a hole. Yes, like the 9 Inch Nails song. I grew up listening to that, so I was immediately drawn to this, of course. I'm just going to read the back because the back just sums it up so well. That's what sold me on it. So I'm just going to read you the back because it's so good. When you bury your past, make sure that it's dead. It's the mid-90s. Grunge and flannel are fading as the Spice Girls and Hot Topic conquer the malls. Cherry gloss glistens on the lips of the youth. Modems hiss as America comes online. And in a fog-drenched cove at the edge of New England, something terrible awakens when a fisherman reels in a gruesome catch. The remains of a young woman. Remains still pulsing with furious life. For Megan Monroe and her friends, this is how their nightmare begins. A wet whisper over their shoulder. A dark hand reaching out from the edge of their sight, and a name clawing at the back of their minds. A young woman scratched from their memory. To stop this devouring terror, Megan will need to bend broken friendships and reassemble her fractured past, for what stalks them hungers to remake itself in their image, piece by bloody piece. See? So good. So good. Anyway, so there is, if you can't tell by the cover, there is some body horror in this. And let me tell you, he doesn't waste any time getting to that. I'm talking like first page, first paragraph. He just dumps you right in it. Like, dumps you right into it. Doesn't waste any time. I swear. It was like he wrote it just for me. It's like horror just for me. It's perfect. I'd say he does the right amount of gross, weird, and unsettling without like kind of crossing the line, at least for me. Like, I never felt like uncomfortable. I mean, I loved it so much that I ended up buying 2 of his other books, By the Light of Dead Stars, which I ended up reading in July. I'm filming this in September, by the way. And then I also got Grim Horizons, which is his short story collection, and I have read a few of those stories as well, because what I like to do is read a book and then I read a short story and read a book, read a short story. So by the end of the month, I've read a short story collection. And that's the book that I'm reading right now, his short story collection. And I have a few other books of his on my radar that I'd like to get. So this was so good. Oh, there was something else I wanted to say. The way that Andrew wrote these sequences, like hallucination sequences, were done so well. It was like things were happening and things kind of start to get weird, and you're like, whoa, that's weird. What? What's going on? And then the character is like, wait, that's weird. Wait, am I hallucinating? And then they slowly realize that they're hallucinating. And then you also, it's like you go along the trip with them in a way. It's really weird how he does it, because it's not like, oh, and then they hallucinated and then blah blah blah. It's like it just kind of like carries you through naturally. He does it really well, and then again dumps you right into the action. Really good body horror. So yeah, this is a 5-star all-time favorite. If you like horror, body horror, 90s, anything set on the coast, I say pick it up, definitely. Okay guys, so that will do it for the second filming of my June wrap-up. And next up will be my July wrap-up. Then I'll have my August wrap-up. And I have some other video ideas mixed in there as well. I want to do some fall or spooky book recommendations. I also have some other video ideas that I won't say yet. But thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.